And a very pleasant Tuesday night to everybody. Welcome to Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Tom Heck with Justus Scott, the baseball coach and athletic director over at Saracosa. And we're going to talk baseball tonight. You've already met Justus. We've talked a little bit about the bowl games, and we had a lot of picks that never happened or didn't come exactly as we thought, but fun anyway. And you got our predictions for the NFL games, and I'm sure that for those that have watched, must enjoy all that. But let's talk about baseball now. You're off to I think a credible start. You're 4-7. You've played a couple very good teams. Talk about the first 11 games.
Well, we've played well at times, and we've played very poor at times, and that's normal for young teams, and certainly early in the season. It's certainly not time to panic. We opened up against West LA and took 2 out of 3, and then we split with Imperial Valley, and then we got them back at our place and won a game against them. So we started off first 7, we were 4-3 and feeling pretty good, and then the last 4 games we've played some very good teams, some very quality junior college baseball teams, and you know, we're on a 4-game slide, but there's a long ways to go.
I know there is a long ways to go, just kind of getting in the thick of things now. And in fact, yesterday league started, the Foothill Conference opener over at Chaffee. Before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about going back to non-conference. People ask sometimes, well, who dictates who you play in the non-conference season? Who schedules for you? And why do you schedule what you do? Are you allowed so many games? Go ahead and talk about how a non-conference schedule becomes reality.
Sure. We as coaches schedule them. That's the first thing, and you know, every conference is different. Ours is once we start conference play, we're pretty much just playing conference games. We have a week, spring break week, that we'll go down and play Southwestern non-conference for a couple of games, and that's kind of a break. And then we finish up with 4 conference games. But most conferences, once they start conference, that's pretty much all they play. So the beginning part of your season, the first. Again, depending how many conference games you have, how many teams are in your conference. You know, usually the first 10, 12, 14 games will be non-conference games. And as far as scheduling them, you know, it's who you can get to your place and a reciprocal agreement that, you know, hey, we'll play you down there. Say West LA, for example, we'll play you down there this year, and hopefully next year you come up and we get a few home games. And again, I think a lot of teams, it depends how good they are. You know, a lot of teams that you know, have quality programs will try to play teams non-conference that have a high RPI, so that way even if they lose, it doesn't affect their RPI too much.
And now this year you had the schedule kind of set for you, so you had to play who was on. I know you played Imperial Valley, and I think originally, correct me if I'm wrong, but they had all the games at Imperial Valley, and Imperial Valley agreed to come here for 1 game. Did they have any idea where they were coming by any chance?
No, they did. Imperial, the guy that's coaching that squad's been there for a while, so he's been up here. You know, it's been years, 6, 7 years ago, I think is what he told me. But yeah, when I first got here in September, about 95% of the schedule was done for me, and out of that 95%, there was maybe 15% of it that was wrong. Let's put it that way. So I had to scramble and find some more games to finish up our 36-game schedule.
Wow. Now, 36, they cut back. I remember, you know, not that many years ago, I believe there were 42, and then they trimmed it back to 36. Now, in your opinion, now you play Division I baseball, is 36 enough games at the community college level? Is that maybe just perfect with the, you know, the amount of arms you have versus the games you have, or what do you think would be a good number?
Well, for this year, it's absolutely perfect for me, just because of depth and especially depth on the mound. But I think to me, it's a little light. Maybe that's just from what I'm used to, and you know, you Division I, Division II, you know, you get 50, 55 games in, you know, and I know that. You know, high school, it depends where you're at, Southern or Northern California, but you might have, you know, 17 to 22 games before postseason. But I think 36 is a little light. I'd like to see it go back to that 42, 44 range.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you did add more games, would you be in favor of double headers? Let's just say that, you know, after a chance to recruit and things. And we used to have double headers here in the Foothill Conference. Every Saturday, the teams would get together. they'd play a 7-inning game or a 9-inning game. Then they would go ahead and play a second game, 9 or 7, depending on what the first game went to, what they agreed to. But I thought that was a very interesting, and I thought for us it was a great situation, because otherwise you have to travel sometimes 2 days a week instead of just the 1 day a week. It used to be you'd play Thursday away, then play home 2 games Saturday, or vice versa. Now you've got Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, so now you've got 3 games a week. And what happens if one of those weeks you have to go to Whittier twice, or you have to go down to Chaffee twice, or even further than that? It kind of makes it, it's kind of a very interesting scenario. Most of the coaches, though, when they had the vote for it, wanted the 3 games a week, no double headers. What would your thoughts be with all that?
Well, I think us in College of the Desert are kind of the outsiders looking in as far as travel. We have a ton of travel, and it's just one of those things that we've all kind of chalked it up that it is what it is. And double headers would certainly help our travel, lighten the load a little bit. So that would be a positive thing. Double headers. I personally like the just from a baseball standpoint, the single games, just because I think it's easier to manage. With double headers, you have to really put some thought into your pitching staff. And again, year to year, it just depends what kind of guys you have, how many, and how they are.
Now, when you were at Memphis, you guys probably played a whole bunch of, well, I don't know about a whole bunch, but probably some doubleheaders, correct?
There's a doubleheader, 2 or 3 sprinkled in there through the season. Most of those games were Friday, Saturday night under the lights, and a Sunday day game and getaway day. But we probably had 3 or 4 doubleheaders. It's been a long time trying to remember back, but 3 or 4 probably.
So 3 days a week, I guess, wouldn't be all that hard, even if you had to travel a little bit. Again, one of the thoughts were academics, too.
Academics is a huge thing, that more time guys are on the road, less time they're in the class. And, there's some teams in our conference, now that I think about it, that they get charter buses, and so us and probably a few other have to van it and drive the vans, which puts a big onus on the coaches and time and like I said earlier, though, it's one of those things. That's what we do, so we have to do it.
Mm-hmm. And it is, one of those things where because of where we are, makes things very interesting. And now the price of gas, of course, is going to go up now after the season gets going, and you have to fill up a couple of vans. So all that has to add up and comes out of an athletic budget. So there's a lot of costs that sometimes people don't really figure into. Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk more. We're going to go into the league. We opened up a few days ago over at Chaffee, and Justus is going to go on and tell us about some of the teams in the league, who the teams are they have to beat to try to get in the playoffs, and who a couple of the ranked teams are. So don't go away. Come back for our second segment, and this is Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Tom Heck with head coach Justus Scott. Back after this timeout. And welcome back, everybody. Glad you're with us. If you just tuned in, this is Justus Scott. He's the head baseball coach here at Saracoso. Also one of the, a guru about predicting college bowl games and other type games. And if you ever need information, I think Justus, 1-800-JUSTICE, make a bet. I'm kidding, but he has great insight.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah, he has great insight on the college game. So, all right, Justus, let's talk about Chaffee. Now, that was a team, traditionally one of the top teams in the league last year. They won the league on the last day. There was really a 3-way tie going into the last game, and they came out on top. But talk about that first league game and how the pitching went, and what do you think of Chaffee? Well,
it's very interesting for me being the first year here in Syracuse and the first year in the Foothill Conference, and not knowing teams that we play. Of course, you hear who's good and who's been good and bad in the past, but Chaffee was certainly a good baseball team. They had 8 guys, 8 defenders that could throw a little bit and could run a little bit, and you could tell they could handle the glove. They played flawless defense. I don't think they made an error and made 3 or 4 above average plays. The guy we saw on the mound was probably they're 2 or 3. I'm guessing they're 3. Mm-hmm. And he was he was adequate. He got ahead and from about the third inning on, threw his breaking ball for strikes. He competed and knew what he was doing. But the biggest thing that impressed me from Chafee was their 2-strike hitting. I think they had 9 hits, and I bet you out of those 9, 6 or 7 of them were with 2 strikes. So you can tell it's something they work on, and it's just a mentality that you're not going to go easily. You're not going to strike out easily.
Now, the starting pitcher yesterday only walked 1 batter. In fact, that was a batter that brought him out of the game. However, he threw a lot of pitches. He went 3-2 counts with at least 6 batters, maybe 7 batters. So that tells me a couple things. Number one, tries to be picky on the plate. Or number two, you guys probably are using a lot of more discipline, trying to just wait for a good pitch, not swing out of the zone. Kind of a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. We're from an offensive standpoint, we're not quite there yet, but we do talk about quite a bit quality at bats and knowing what you want to hit. If you're earshot of me on the field, you'll hear me say that probably 24 times during a 9-inning game. Know what you want to hit, and I think guys at this level, at the amateur level, if they pretty much just are dead red fastball, they'll have success. So I think, again, he nibbled a little bit. The guy from Chafee nibbled a little bit with his breaking ball early in the count, but we did an adequate job of seeing pitches and fouling a few off and getting the counts long. We just have to finish in that 3-2. You draw a walk, foul it off, or get a hit.
Now, your starter yesterday, Kiefer McClendon, had a great game about a week and a half ago against Monterey Peninsula. Went 10 innings of shutout baseball. That's unheard of this day and age on any level. 10 innings, that's about 2 or 3 games for some pitchers, 10 innings. But he went 10 innings, only scattered 3 hits, I believe, struck out 12 or 13, and just a marquee game of a lifetime. And then struggled on Saturday against Chafee. I think maybe the start that he got off to wasn't real good, and an error that maybe shouldn't have happened. I thought maybe it got to him a little bit, emotionally. He kind of mentioned it did. Your thoughts?
No, you hit probably the 3 talking points. Going back to the Peninsula game, that he only threw 105 pitches, I believe, in 10 innings, so he had complete command against a good baseball team. Monterey was very good, so again, it's, I didn't expect yesterday's outing certainly early, but these are young guys. I mean, these guys are pretty much straight out of high school, and it's early, and they're gonna ebb and flow. They're gonna have good starts, bad starts, and I think you're right that he walked a couple guys early. I believe the first 2 hitters, and then they just a straight sacrifice bunt and miscommunication between him and Chad Butler, our third baseman, and Kiefer threw it in the left, and the wheels kind of fell off pretty quick, and he didn't quite get it back from there. I think they scored through 4 innings, and they scored every inning against them. It's tough with the type of offense we have. It's tough to be able to come back when we're down a lot.
Mm-hmm. Then you had, after Kiefer left the game, you had a couple guys come out of the pen, and Rashid Jones came in and really did a great job, and I think he'll be looking for that ball pretty soon, maybe even as a 4th starter possibly, but I know he was very pleased yesterday, and Tim South, faced 6 batters, I believe, and got them all.
Yep.
So I know you got to be very more proud of that pen.
No, absolutely. Jones and South coming in for the last 4 innings, and I believe, Chafee scored 1 unearned run. So again, it made the score more respectable, losing 10-3. It could have been, when Jones came in, we were down 9-1, and it could very easily gotten way out of hand. But those 2 guys, and that's what you like to see. Both had their last outings, both struggled, so it's good to see them back out there and have some success for the next time they go out there, a little more confident.
Okay, now you've seen Chafee, one of the better teams traditionally in our league, although this year on paper struggled some, but again, it's early and they've played some good teams also. You have to keep that in mind, as San Bernardino, your next opponent, has. But overall, your thoughts on Chafee?
Well, again, a very solid baseball team. You can tell that they're well coached, and they have some athletes, and they do things just fundamentally sound. Like I mentioned earlier, when you look at a junior college team, if you see the entire defense or the entire team that's playing in the starting lineup, if they all could kind of throw a little bit and run a little bit above average, you got something to work with, and I think that's what certainly Chafee has, and they're gonna be in a lot of games.
Well, why don't we to our third segment to talk more about all the different teams in the Foothill. But let's talk about your next game, and that'll be against San Bernardino. Your thoughts?
Well, again, without having to see them play, on paper, they've struggled so far this year, but they played a lot of good teams, and they've lost to some teams that they probably haven't in the past and shouldn't have. So maybe they could be down, and it's another team that predominantly, from what I hear, is top 3 in our conference. So it's good for us to play a good team and hopefully win a baseball game. That will do a lot for our guys.
Now, right now, I know one thing you were concerned about in the fall, depth. How did that kind of end up as far as the numbers go?
Well, it's we still don't have any. We were able to pick up a couple guys to help our basically our starting lineup and our outfield play at the break. We lost some pitchers at break for different reasons. So we're just very thin on the mound. When we're thin as far as depth position-wise, and it really does limit the options of who you can play. Pinch running, pinch hitting, defensive replacement. That stuff is it's not going to happen because we don't have the numbers. But that's a negative thing for a coach. But the positive side is the guys that we have, they're going to get playing time.
Yep, they sure are.
They're going to struggle, and they're going to learn to battle through it. They got no other choice because they have to play.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll come back our third segment. We'll talk more about the league and a few other things. Don't go away. Ridgecrest Talk right here on KZGN. And welcome back to Ridgecrest Talk. Tom Heck here with Justus Scott, the baseball coach at Saracoso. And we've been talking a little bit about the Coyotes, their start of the season, their non-league conference games, how they schedule non-league conference games. Talked about the first league game, and there's many more to follow. Now, you play every team in the league exactly 4 times, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so what you'll do is, in the first round, you'll play everybody 1 time, and then how does it go from there?
Then we have a 3-game set, which will be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So a 3-game series, just spread apart throughout the week. So it's kind of it's interesting. I don't know of many conferences that do it this way, but you get everybody once and you kind of see them. And then when the time rolls around for a 3-game series, you kind of have an idea of already seeing them. So there's not a lot of surprises, and the kids know. You're able to get some scouting reports a little bit, and by game 3 you should have a pretty good idea of where to play guys and their tendencies on the mound and tendencies at the plate.
Now let's talk about how many days rest do you think a starting pitcher, let's say he goes 5 or 6 innings, is it 3 days rest, is it 4 days rest, is there a magic number for you, and what do you consider when you make a decision to bring somebody back, and what is comfortable for you for your rotation?
Great question, and there's a lot of variables to it. There's not one set answer, especially with what we have this year as far as the depth of our rotation and our guys out of our bullpen. At first it depends on the player, how strong he is. There's some guys that their arms bounce back incredibly well. There's other guys that are sore for 2 or 3 days, no matter how much they run or no matter how much they work. So each guy's a little bit different. To me, at the very least, three full days of rest it would be the minimum, and that would be sparingly. We might come across that and use that. The last fourth of the season, maybe the last 8-10 games, but certainly 5 days. 5 days you're pretty much clear. That gives a guy a chance to, after a start, have a day off. Get a bullpen, get a flat ground, do long toss, run. And he should be healthy and ready to go. But to me, more than innings, it's pitch count. And again, depending on which guy is strong and which is not. Some guys like Kiefer, for example, could through 100, 105 pitches, and he's a guy that can bounce back. And if I wanted to, pitch 3 days later. Not that we would, but his arm is just kind of built different than some other guys we have.
Now, the other day at Chafee, I was doing the broadcast, and right next to me they had a radar gun, and they were keeping track mainly of the Chafee pitcher, but he could, when I asked, he could kind of hit the button, and we could see. And Kiefer, for the most part, was low 80s, for his, I didn't get every pitch, but a steady diet of 81, 82, I think maybe 183. Is that fairly typical for this level for a junior college pitcher?
I'd say so. I'd say it's certainly typical for us, and probably typical for us in the past few years. You got a guy's fastball 82, 85 as a pretty good junior college fastball, especially if it has some movement. But guys that pitch at 82 to 84 certainly have to have two other pitches, and they have to have command, because an 82 mile an hour fastball, 3-1 count, 2-0 count, is not gonna it's not gonna get by guys. They're gonna square it up. And I think that's why. Switching gears a little bit, Chafee and Rio and some of these other, college canyons, they'll have a couple starters that run it up there 87 to 90, and that's a big difference if we're able to get guys like that, 2 or 3 that or more, but as starters or guys coming out of the pen, then you have some. So
okay, what about hitting? I mean, as far as are you a small ball type guy? I know right now you're very aggressive with base runners, and your philosophy is, we may not have a whole lot of them coming in. Let's get what we can, and then let our pitching, try to carry us a little bit. But yesterday, or a few days ago over at Chafee, all the bunts, I was amazed how many times they squared up, even with a lead. I think one of their philosophies is to move people over.
No, correct. It's when you're hitting a baseball, a lot of people don't realize this, but when you got a good hitting team, it's very easy to bunt, and bunt more than you normally would, because it's easier to give up that out, knowing guys behind him, even if it's your 6th, 7th, 8th hitter, getting hits. So it's easier to bunt, it's easier to run and get guys thrown out trying to steal when you have a good hitting team, because runners aren't a premium. So by nature I am not a small ball guy. But it doesn't mean I just wait for the 3-run homer either. I kind of like the combination of it, and I really try to lean on knowing what kind of team I have and the type of players. And right now, which is part of our 4-game slide, is our dilemma is that we haven't pitched well early and haven't played great defense when we're not pitching well. And so we've gotten behind in the early innings, and we do not have the type of team to come back from 6 or 7 runs. We have to be in the game, the entire game, in order to bunt, maybe move some runners, get a big 2-out hit. That's just how we're built. I think in the last 3 games we've had 29 or 30 hits, 9 or 10 hits a game, with maybe 1 or 2 doubles sprinkled in there. So again, we might get some more here later on. Power numbers might start coming, but we have to pitch and play defense in order to play some small ball and keep the game close and maybe edge somebody out by a run or 2.
I noticed, we've only played the one team in the league, that really, as far as individual batting averages and numbers and team statistics, we were very even with Chafee. Yes. I mean, extremely even. I mean, right down in every category. I was amazed. I don't remember ever being just like clones of somebody else. It's really now we've played one more game than they have, and they've played a pretty steady diet of competitive baseball. We've played a couple of good teams ourselves. So you look at all that stuff, and I think sometimes we can overanalyze things also. And how do you approach that with your kids, with numbers and stats and charts, and what's your philosophy there?
We do a lot of charts. Now that we've played starting in conference, I think that's a great thing to have kind of tendencies on other teams. It makes the guys feel like that they're prepared a little bit more. And certainly in baseball, stats are a great thing in baseball. Everybody looks at them. Just after the Chafee game, I told our guys the exact same thing, that in order for us to beat teams like Chafee, we obviously have to pitch well, play good defense, but they have to understand what kind of team they are. We got, like I said, we got 9 or 10 hits, and they're all singles. You can't bunt, you can't run when you're down by 8. It's just not very good baseball. Now Chafee, on the other hand, 8, 9 hits, half of them are probably doubles. 4 or 5 doubles mixed with a couple of our walks and a couple errors. Big innings. So that's what we have to stay away from defensively. And offensively, we have to just keep swinging the bat, and hopefully we're in the game so we can bunt and we can run, hit and run a little bit.
Now I know, and lastly, and we'll have Justus again probably next month and down the road as the baseball season progresses. But one thing I think you do a great job about that goes unsung sometimes is all the work on the field. I know that you're kind of a green thumb, so to say, kind of something you take a lot of pride for. But is that something that you just kind of learn over the years on how to groove and maintain a baseball?
No, absolutely. It's just experience. Being around the game for a long time and watching people that have been around the game for a long time and just, know what to do when the dirt's this way or that way or after a rain. And we certainly got our home field looking very nice. It's a quality baseball field.
It certainly is. All right, Justus, thanks very much, and we hope you enjoyed our segment tonight. You can join us again next Tuesday night for another sports theme right here on Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Tom Heck for Justus Scott. Have a very pleasant, good evening.